He's a tough street-fighting lawyer with the highest ratings for honesty and integrity. He's here to answer your legal questions and get you the help you need. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Joe Ingram has more than 20 years' experience fighting for his clients here in the state of Alabama. Joe's focus is criminal defense and family law. You don't have to face your legal issue alone. You've got Joe Ingram on your side. In case of sensitive legal matters, you can always reach out directly to Joe at joeingramlaw.com and arrange for a private consultation. And now, Alabama's defender of the defenseless, protector of the people, and all-around good guy, Joe Ingram.
All right. You're listening to Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Birmingham lawyer, on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. I told you last week I was taking the week off. Well, I got a surprise for you folks. We were fortunate to be able to connect with Jared Hudson, who is running for United States Senate. And Jared is going to be our guest for the second hour of the show today. You don't want to miss that interview. So he will be our guest the second hour. And for those of you that listened to the show last week, I did go up to Huntsville Sunday to see the Greg Gutfeld show of Fox News. It was phenomenal. And I got some good news. I had been a little worried about this Iranian war issue. And if you've ever been to Gutfeld's show, what he does is he put pictures up of either Fox News celebrities or an issue or that, and then he's just a commentator and a comedy guy. And he put up a picture of the Iranian war, and the crowd went nuts. And I was like, okay, Alabama's still Trump country. They're good with the Iran war. So that's a little update on that. As always, we ask you to listen to our show, download, like it, share it with your friends and family, even the people you don't like. Share it with them as well. As always, the sponsor of my show is Spy for Rent. Spy for Rent is the name to know in Alabama for private investigators. Jeff Hammock, Corey Fuller are the two best investigators in the state of Alabama, and they are the names you need to know if you need a private investigator in the state. Today, the first hour, we're going to talk a little bit about alimony, and how you can terminate alimony for you husbands out there that are paying through the nose for alimony. It's a big issue. It's a really big issue. And so Jeff Hammock is with me again this week. I had to bribe him to come in and do this with me at short notice. So, Jeff, let's talk about how do we terminate alimony for the ex-husbands.
Good morning. It really depends on, I think, how you've been awarded the alimony, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, 3 types?
There are 3 types of alimony.
You want to rattle them off, or you want me to?
You go ahead. You're the legal.
Let's not use legal. Okay. Periodic.
Right.
Lifetime.
Correct.
Rehabilitative.
Correct.
Each one has its own meaning. Periodic, I think, until it's just certain at a 4-year period the alimony stops, correct? With the calendar date set.
Right.
Rehabilitative may be to finish school, obtain a degree.
Go back to school, get some education, get a job, so that you can go get a job and get off my dime.
And then the unfortunate who won't get off the dime, you get the lifetime award of alimony.
Yeah, you win the gong show.
Yeah, that's it. But even that can be taken away, right? There's outs. It's not forever if the other party violates the terms of the agreement. It's like a contract, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, right.
That's correct.
Well, Joe, how do I get alimony?
So, this goes back to law school. It depends. Alimony is based on a number of factors. It's based on the length of the marriage. It's based on the income of the parties. It's based on the lifestyle of the parties, of what they're accustomed to. It's based on if one party works and the other party's been a stay-at-home parent. It's based on a number of those factors. More often than not, unless you're a movie star or you're a high-profile woman that's paying alimony, and there are those. I wish I could find one. Men normally end up paying the alimony in a divorce case, and we're talking about lifetime alimony, and the courts will look at the length of the marriage. They will look at the lifestyle of the parties. They will look at whether this person has the ability to obtain a job at some point in time. They're also going to look at, was there anything that the person that's going to receive alimony is a victim of? In other words, like in the Tiger Woods case, it came out he had all these girlfriends all over the world, and so his ex-wife got a phenomenal settlement. Or did your husband give you a sexually transmitted disease? That's something that is in a whole different category that you ought to pay through the nose for,
right? Because
you're going to be stuck with treatment for the rest of your life. And not only that, I think you have an obligation to tell any sexual partner you have up front, hey, I have this, and you need to know that.
So you contract something. Either way, you get the divorce, you get the alimony. $5,000 a month is not an uncommon number. Could be. You're really based on your income, your ability to pay, and as you said, the lifestyle. So if you're like most of these marriages that are ending, you're strapped, right? You're spending every dime you have on the kids' lifestyle, the spouse's lifestyle, your own, the travel, right? That's something that could be considered in the receiving of alimony. We do these annual excursions with the kids for the last 14 years. He has to keep that up, or she has to keep it up. And there are women who pay alimony. We mostly will say he has to, but that's the common factor that comes across the desk. So you've been paying, let's just say $5K a month, $60,000 a year. You're now $600,000. The kids are grown a little bit. Maybe they're off in college. We call it that calendar time of the kids. Some are still in high school. Others have moved on to college. Maybe one's getting ready to get married. And since the divorce, you haven't really kept up with your spouse much, right? Mm-hmm. Very common. They will sit at your desk and say, "I don't know. She moved to. I moved to another state, and I don't ever see them." Right?
Yeah.
And then comes that rumor that person you see at the graduation, then you see them at a birthday party, and before long, you begin to recognize. And if you don't, most likely your new spouse will begin to recognize that there's $60K a year rolling out of their household, and there shouldn't be, right? So the digging starts. What happens when someone comes in, says, Joe, I'm paying $60,000 a year or more. Might be paying $120,000, depends on what the award is. I think there's something there, and I read the papers that I didn't agree with then, but I hated her so much, so I just agreed to give her $60K a year to make it go away. What can I do if, one, she is cohabitating, or two, how do I just end it? Can I do a bulk payment, give her some money, and just settle this thing? So I don't want to deal with her in any aspect. So there's two ways. What would you tell the client when they came in and said, I'm $60K a year out, and I think something's happening?
All right, so let's take scenario 2 first, because that one's easier to explain. Let's just say, for intents purposes, that a man comes in my office. He's paying alimony. He's been paying it for 15 years. His children are grown. They've gone off to college. They're self-sustained. They're taking care of themselves. And I've had this scenario. Gentleman comes in. He says, Joe, I'm 68. I've been to my doctor. And doctor says that there's no way I'm going to live to see 80. He may have some kind of terminal illness. He may have, diabetes, heart issues, something like that. And he's like, I don't want to spend every dollar to the end of my life paying my ex-wife. I need out of this. And I'll say, can you really document for me your medical condition? Oh, yeah, Joe, I can go get the records. I can prove all this. Okay. I've actually had a scenario where we have contacted the ex-wife that's receiving the alimony. And sometimes it's done by letter. Sometimes it's done by phone call. Sometimes it's just done by filing the case, and they finally cave at the last minute. And I say, look, your ex-husband is on short time, and he would like to take some of the money he has left and maybe go travel and take that bucket list trip or whatever it is he wants to do before he leaves this earth. Is there any way I could, give you a lump sum payment and we terminate this? And in that case, the ex-husband and ex-wife were still on good terms because they raised their children together. That's what I don't understand. You're divorcing your spouse. You're not divorcing your children. You're going to still see each other at graduations. You're going to see each other at weddings. You're going to see each other when they have grandkids. You're going to see them. If you try to still have the family core, you're going to see them again. And in that particular situation, the ex-wife said, you know what? Let's cut a deal. It's kind of like with a collection case where I like to say, let's pay 10, 20 cents on the dollar and call it a day. And it just comes down to negotiation at that point, and we got lucky and got that one resolved. So,
but for the unlucky, for the ones that aren't resolved, it's usually a challenge in court if they want to take it and reduce the alimony.
Yeah, so let's talk about scenario one. Husband's paying alimony through the nose. Maybe ex-wife has a really good job. I'll tell you about a case that I had. She made really good money. They had been divorced for a number of years. The children were now teenagers. And you have to be careful with this, Jeff, because in this case, we use the children as intelligent officers to help build the case to terminate alimony.
Kind of touchy, but
I know, and that's why
parental control. It's your kids. If you decide to drag them through the mud and suffer the consequences, in some sense, sometimes it works out. Sometimes that child will have that conversation with the other parent and say, "This is wrong," and we make a chance. But in your case, probably not so much.
Where I'm going is you don't want to call what we call parental alienation. And that's just a legal term meaning you are putting your kids in the middle of a divorce or a post-divorce case, and you're talking bad about the other parent, and it I'm trying to think of a word right now. I'm having a brain fog.
It breaks down the relationship.
Thank you. It breaks down the relationship between the child and mom. You're turning your children against their mother based on whatever they're doing in their home. And so where I'm going with this is, if you have teenagers, this is better than toddlers, like 6 to 10. And in my particular case, the girl was like 14 years of age, right? She had a cell phone. And so guy comes to me and he says, my daughter tells me that a man's been living with my ex-wife for over a year. He lives there. He's got a garage door opener. His clothes are in the closet. He takes vacations with the family. And my daughter's even told me that he pays some of the utility bills there. They're literally in his name. They're not in the wife's name. The utility bills are in his name at her house. And I'm like, okay, we got something to work with here, because here's the issue. if you file the case to terminate alimony, everybody talks about burden of proof in a courtroom. Criminal case is burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil case like this, it's my burden of proof as the lawyer. It's my client's burden of proof to prove that they are cohabitating to terminate alimony. And it's not as easy to prove as you think it is. But based on what I've just told you, we're going down the path, and there's a really good chance I can prove this case. Okay? So I said, okay, I met with my client. I said, I need for you to go talk to your daughter and ask her to take pictures of clothes in the closet of the boyfriend. Take pictures of the utility bills that are laying at home in his name for like the power bill, the phone bill, the water bill, the gas bill, whatever it is. And then get me some pictures where they went on a vacation. I think they went on a cruise. I think they did something else. They took some big vacations. And the daughter was all in because here's what happens. And this is where I put on my psychology hat. And this is when you start smiling. This all goes back to psychology as a child, Jeff. These children, more often than not, do not like someone that moves in your home and replaces your mom or your dad. It's just inherently. Somebody is sleeping in the bed with your mother or your father, and you don't like it because it's not your mom or your dad. It just doesn't feel normal, right?
Exactly.
And so the children are all in. Sure, I'll go do this. I'll be your intelligence officer. And so we get all the intel we need, and they're like, okay, Joe, what else do you need? I said, I want to be fully covered before I file the case. What do you want to do? I said, well, and we had this case last year. We've talked about it. We're not going to bring that one up. I said, we need video. They said, what are you talking about? I said, well, we need to get a private investigator, or we've got to get somebody to put cameras out around the house, because you don't want to do this once. You want enough video evidence to show a pattern of behavior. Not dad, the boyfriend has a remote control. He's pulling in the garage at night. He's leaving in the morning every day. You want to show this over a period of time to show, hey, he's really residing there. He's not spending the weekend. He's not staying on Friday and Saturday night. He's living in the home. And so we set up video cameras outside the house, and we recorded him coming home and leaving every morning. I think we did it for like a month. Just, you just need snippets to show of coming and going every day for a month. And then I said, I got the case. Let's go file the case to terminate alimony. And so we did. We went and filed the case.
We jump in somewhere about that point where you were talking about the investigation. I do want to say so the pictures on the inside of the house, that is something an investigator would never, ever be able to produce to you legally unless they just invited you in to photograph it. The horror story is the same situation you just described. The ex-spouse decides to, because the house is for sale, hire an investigator to contact the real estate agent, go into the home under the pretense of buying the house, and view it. Two investigators go in. One keeps the agent busy while the other one runs around the house and photographs the other individual's items inside. That's wrong. You can't do that, right? I mean, you're nodding. I know from a trainer standpoint, you can't falsify these documents that you're signing. You put the real estate agent's license. So don't get creative out there and try to come up with your own ways. We've worked on these files for years, and there are ways. We use an acronym that I teach on. It's called corralled, much like you would do your livestock, put them in a corral. Excuse me. And each letter has objectives that I will tick off on, and make sure the investigator has hit those points. The first one is contributions. If an individual is living in a home, how do they contribute to the lifestyle of that home? As you said, do they pay power? Do they go get the mail? Do they help contribute to the care of the children? Do they bring home groceries? Do they plant flowers? What is their contributions? Number two is observations on the corral. What are we seeing on the day-to-day activities? Routines, regularity, residency, resident research. Did they, as you said, will they, what we call pop on an address search because they did what you said, they put the power bill in their name, or they put a cell phone bill or a cable bill. Do they work from home as a regular job, and that's why we see their vehicle there all the time? Do they work from home, but they're going back to their other location to work there and then residing at the client's ex-wife's, ex-husband's house overnight? Electronics. As we discussed on one of the shows, we have the ability to track some IP addresses, see their locations, and be able to go back and pull a history. And then discards. We all throw away our trash, right? And all I need is something with your name. I can't tell you the times we pulled prescription receipts out with the individual's name on it, or some other type of receipt. The things that we throw away are can be very incriminating in the case. So when we can hit all the letters of the acronym CORRAL, we feel confident we're able to give the attorney something to file on and move forward.
Yeah.
I think I got them right. CORRAL, C-O-R. Yeah, it's not spelled the same, but I got all the points.
And we had a case last year that we were working on, and I had a client that decided to play investigator. And the bad thing about that case was sometimes you can be cheap and shoot your own self in the foot, or you can get a professional and win the case. And if I'd had a professional do it, Jeff, then that case would have won.
Well, we were involved, but as you said, he went cheap and had no reason to go cheap. He had a very good job.
He had the resources.
He had the money there to pay for us to do what we needed to do. He had no patience, and every time he wrote that alimony check, it stung a little more because it was in his face. It was a small town.
And what y'all were trying to do, you weren't trying to gouge my client. Y'all were being cost effective in the approach and what we were trying to take to achieve the means.
One of the letters in there, corralled, the L, is the longevity. Cohabitation is not proved in a 2-night stay together.
Absolutely not.
It's not proved sometime in a 2-month stay. The average client cannot afford to keep us out there every day, all the time, doing this. So we do patterns. We put you on our calendar, and we'll pick an afternoon and conduct an evolution. I'm not going to tell you what that evolution is, but it usually involves a transition to and from and the end of your day, and we try to capture that, or we try to capture the beginning of how does your day start and where does it start from, right? So those are not a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're done. That's a Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Friday, and then the next month we're going to hit it again on different dates, different evenings, and we're going to roll this out till the attorney says that's a pretty good window on the calendar to show the consistent behavior.
Right. And he didn't do that, and he decided to be a private investigator, and that case did not turn out well for him.
Well, it's against the law to practice, just like it's against the law to practice as an attorney or anything else.
Well, not only is it against the law, I think it turned into a criminal case. We'll be back after the news and weather and the break. This is Legal Lowdown. Have Jeff Hammock in the house of Spy for Rent. Fascinating conversation about terminating alimony for all you ex-husbands out there. We'll be back after news and weather.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right, you listen to the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Birmingham lawyer on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. If you need representation, hate to plug myself, Joe Ingram Law is all you need to know. Joe Ingram Law in the state of Alabama. My phone number is 205-825-5297. We have been talking today with Jeff Hammock of Spy for Rent, sponsor of my show, and we've been talking about how to terminate alimony during the first segment. And so we're going to pick up where we left off. So, Jeff, going back to my story a little bit about my client that wanted to terminate alimony. So, the child has played intel officer, has provided pictures of the house and the boyfriend there. We have documentation evidence of the utility bills in the house. We have video evidence now of boyfriend coming in and out of the garage 7 days a week with a garage door opener. We got all the evidence we need now. So now it comes to the point where we file a lawsuit. And that's what it is in divorce cases, a post-divorce lawsuit where you're trying to terminate alimony. And I put enough information in my petition to let the ex-wife know that I know what I know. And I filed my lawsuit, and just like any civil case, you have 30 days by law to file an answer. She goes, hires representation. She denies everything. And so then we start what is called litigation. And clients will say, well, what do we do now? Well, we do discovery. And all discovery is a legal term to say we're either going to ask you questions under oath, what are called interrogatories, questions under oath. We are going to do requests for production where we ask for documents to provide by the other side. Or in this case, I did what is called request for admissions. Now, that is one of the greatest things we have in a courthouse, request for admissions, because these are written in the fashion of admit or deny X, admit or deny Y. And these answers are under oath, okay? And so I ask her all the questions in a request for admissions document. You know, admit that somebody's living in your house. Admit X. Admit Y. Admit that he, parks in the garage. Admit that he has a garage door opener. And she denied every one of them. And I thought, man, she has really cooked her goose. And so you do all of the discovery so that maybe you can pound them into submission. It's what we call beat them to death with paper law. And it didn't work in this case. And so my client says, well, Joe, what do we do? I said, well, we're going to try the case. And I said, but if I'm going to try the case, rule number 1 in law school is you don't ask a question in the courtroom that you reasonably don't think you know the answer to, i.e., meaning I'm going to take her deposition. So we depose her. And not only did I depose her, right at the 12th hour, I sent a subpoena to her boyfriend who was living with her to take his deposition first.
I have a question.
All right.
Just a rule.
You're good. Go.
Okay. So you have the guy living there.
Yep.
You've issued a subpoena. Mm-hmm. Did you issue it to the address, her house?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I know where you're going with this. So he pulls out of the driveway. The garage door opener comes up like at 6:45, and the process server that I had to serve the subpoena is literally standing in the driveway, and the guy was going to run over him. And I told my process server, I said, "You got to get him served. You got to get him served." He was going to make it really difficult. I said, I said, do what you got to do. And I think he literally broke the guy's door glass. What do you call it? The window. I think he broke it with his elbow. And he said, "You're served." And he had on a body cam thing to prove that he got him. And because the deposition was like 3 days later. I mean, I waited to the 12th hour. I went stealth on this, Jeff. And so we show up for the depositions, and we take boyfriends first. And he didn't have a lawyer, which he probably should have. And I start asking him questions. And every question is Fifth Amendment. Fifth Amendment. Under my constitutional right, I invoked the Fifth Amendment. He wasn't going to answer any question. And I did it for about an hour, and I thought, okay, I'm not getting anywhere. And I did not want to. Some lawyers will say, if they're not getting questions, well, let's just go call the judge and see if we're going to get answers out of you today. I don't like to do that, and I especially didn't want to do that in this case because I was out of county, and I didn't know how the judge would perceive it when I got to trial, so I didn't play that card. So after about an hour of getting the Fifth Amendment, I said, okay, I'm done with you. And so he has to leave the room. Now, here's the good point. The ex-wife she's gotten the opportunity to sit in the room and watch his deposition because she is a party to the lawsuit.
Defendant.
She's the defendant in the lawsuit. And so she has sat there and watched her boyfriend deny every question or would not answer any question under oath. And she knows that I've got the evidence because they asked us for evidence. I've proven I've shown them most of my evidence. However, I had not given away my best card yet. The intel pictures from inside the house of the closet, the utility bill, I had kept those close to my vest. And here's why. I wasn't trying to play dirty pool. I was trying to protect the relationship of the child with the mother, i.e., meaning I did not want to use a child in this scenario because I didn't want to hurt that relationship, right? Yep. Unless I had to. And I thought, okay, I got to go all in. This is like, what do they call poker, where you go all in?
I don't gamble. I'm self-employed. I can't gamble. I can't afford it.
Yeah, you're a little Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was like Texas Hold'em poker, I think is what they call it, where you go all in. And so I start pulling out the color photographs. Is this your boyfriend's clothes in the closet? You should have seen the look on her face. It was priceless because she has to be thinking, how did you get this picture? How would you get this picture inside my home?
You didn't have to disclose the source of the picture, did you?
No, but you start thinking logically, and you go, well, how would he get this picture? And then you start showing the second picture and the third picture. Oh, is this the picture of you and your boyfriend and your children on a cruise? Well, then it comes down to the process of elimination. Who would have taken the pictures? And, she just kept lying under oath. She kept lying under oath. And I had so much evidence in this case that finally her lawyer looked at me and he says, Joe, can we negotiate? And I said, look, dude, I'm on the clock today. I'm not negotiating in a deposition. I said, if you want to write something on a piece of paper, I'm going to keep going with my questions. I got to get on with this. And he said, well, can we take a recess for a break? Well, that's just being courteous in a deposition. I said, yeah, let's take 5. Everybody go to the restroom, go get water, go regroup. And they come back from the break, and he's like, Joe, what do you want to do to settle this? And I guess I pulled a trump related to the mediation in Islamabad this last weekend, where I want it all. I want everything. She gets nothing. And the ex-wife was sitting there, and she said, well, I've been depending on that money for years. And I'm thinking, you don't need it anymore. You're living high on the hog. So we settled that case that day. My client had his alimony completely terminated. And Jeff, here is the big takeaway. This is the big takeaway in this case. When you look at what he was paying, and he was roughly, 45 to 50. And we did the math. I roughly $780,000 if she received it for another 20-something years.
Yeah.
Now that's a big number.
That's a big number. And so the first question, how much is this going to cost, Joe? I don't know. How much is it going to cost, Jeff, for you to go get this information for Joe for me to file? Well, I don't know either. But if you look at it as you're obligated in this debt for the rest of your life, the rest of her life, and if you look at it as an ROI, how much do you want to spend to possibly save the other $700,000? You spend 3 months alimony with us, and we have a pretty good handle on what you're going to be able to do or not be able to do in court. And again, it's up to the lawyer, it's up to the judge. It really depends on your circumstances, but you spend a couple of months of alimony.
Yeah,
and that's not a bad thing to come back on, is it?
Absolutely not. My client was so happy. When I sent him my final bill, he called me. He said, Joe, is this all I owe you? I'll pay you more. I said, no, that's all you owe me, dude. I said, I'm happy. So
I have a procedural question.
Yeah.
Let's say that it's the first of the month, and I have decided I'm not paying anymore. I've hired Joe. Joe's hired Jeff. We're all in agreement. There's cohabitation. I just don't write the check next month or wait on her to complain and sue me, or do I file first? And if I do, even if I file, can I put my money somewhere else other than her pocket, like an escrow account with the court, and let that be held until the termination or the decision, final adjudication of the judge on the termination of alimony?
Yeah.
Can I do that? Because I'm already pissed off. It's first of the month. I see them every month together, every day together. I know he and her are living on my dime. Why do I got to keep paying?
I get it. And this is a really sticky question. And this falls into the category of, as a lawyer, I cannot tell my client to violate a court order in which they are ordered to do something. Now,
but can I just give you the money?
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
Let's just talk to this, because you gave some really good alternatives. If we're going to file the case and go through this, the ex-wife has an absolute right to file a counterclaim for what we call a petition for rule nisi for contempt for him not paying the alimony. Right?
Right. I'm in trouble. Violated the court order.
Violated court order.
But you got to get me in front of a hearing, right?
Right.
No, okay.
Okay. So we're talking through this strategically. So let's just say the husband says, I'm going to file the case and I'm not going to pay, and we're just going to litigate the case out. That's a decision for him to make. There's another alternative. we can do one of the other suggestions that you made, i.e., we're going to take this money and we're going to tell the court that we're going to pay it into the clerk's office to hold an escrow, i.e., meaning we're not technically violating the court order, but we don't think she's entitled to it, so we're going to let the judge decide. Now, that's one way to do it, right?
Right.
And even if she files a rule nisi, well, if he wins, he's not going to be held. He's probably not going to be held in contempt of court. He's going to win that argument. And so I have to be really careful on the air talking about this issue, because I would not tell anybody to ever violate a court order. But in the category of visitation and child support and alimony, I always tell my clients, you have to make a decision, and then I have to be the lawyer and argue whatever you chose to do. So,
well, you're going to have to give me a break, Joe. I can't afford all the alimony. I can't afford child support. I can't afford the second house. I can't afford the car. I got college coming up on the other kid. Can I get out from child support? Can I get out from under it? Because she's talking about increasing this to pay for the kid to go on to college.
Well,
scenario, not mine. It's not me.
Well, child support terminates at 19, age of majority in the state of Alabama. We have done away with making parental parents pay for college now. That case law was called Bayless. It's been overruled. You can't order parents to pay for college anymore. However, people can agree to anything in divorce court because it's a contract. And there are situations where we were talking off air, me and John, when you got lost in the building somewhere and we had to come find you.
I need a signal flare in this building and a lock pick.
I'm just kidding. There are circumstances where, parties can be over the guidelines, meaning child support is based on the income of the parties. And we are fortunate enough in this world where there are people that have enough income that they are way over the guidelines. And let's just say you have an ex-parent that is a doctor. Doctors make really good money, and they should. I'm not knocking it. And when you have people that have money of means, you can be very creative how you write agreements so that you can resolve cases and don't have to litigate them. A lot of times people that have money would rather resolve cases reasonably rather than go to the judge. And I've had Judge Vines, Judge Huff, a number of judges on the show. I always tell my client, if you make a decision and you make an agreement, would you rather control your destiny, or would you rather have somebody that has a black robe on, that doesn't live your life, that chooses what happens in your life? And so more often than not, sometimes it's better to resolve a case.
Right. So child support is mandatory in the state. If I have children and I get a divorce, someone has to pay child support, right?
We have to calculate child support. That is mandatory. It's not necessarily mandatory that you have to pay it, meaning we can be really creative.
I was going to interrupt you and say we see that little paragraph at the end as to whatever the parties may agree upon, right? Mm-hmm. So if we are both sharing equal time, there are parents who do 7 on, 7 off, Monday to Monday, and neither pay child support, much like the escrow account they pay into a checking account, correct? And that money's equally shared?
You're absolutely correct.
How big of a nightmare is that when they come back around with a fight? Where they've waived child support. right? And
Well,
you can't waive it. I mean, you can just agree not to receive it.
Yeah, but the big takeaway here is in divorce court, child support, child custody, visitation, and alimony are all modifiable at some point in time.
It's the only case we have in our legal system that you can actually go back and modify. You can't modify a criminal charge. You can't modify a car wreck. You can't modify a probate or a name change. Divorce court is the only thing where you file a case, it continues to have a life if you choose to give it life, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, it's funny you were talking about the issues that we can modify. I had a case last year, Jeff, where the parties got divorced, and neither one of the parties used me in the divorce case, but one of the parties came back and they wanted to modify the property settlement. I mean, they just got a divorce, and one of the parties wanted to modify the property settlement. And the client comes into me because he was referred to me from somebody, and I said, dude, we got this case. And he said, how do you know? I said, you can't modify a property settlement. I said, it's absolute case law. I said they shouldn't even have filed the case. And in fact, that case, not only did we file a motion to dismiss, I filed a motion to dismiss under the Alabama Litigation Accountability Act. And I nailed the lawyer to the wall, and that lawyer had to pay money to me out of their personal pocket, not their client, their pocket, because it was a frivolous lawsuit. They should have known better than to file the case.
One of the things you cannot modify is a property settlement after it's settled. Correct?
That's right.
Okay. I'm going to be a lawyer one day, Joe.
Jeff, do you know enough? You could practice law any day of the week.
No, I don't like to read.
And that lawyer will remember that for a very, very, very long time, that case. In fact, I got another case, Jeff, this week. Remember that case I sent you the order on a couple weeks ago where I got the attorney fee? Mm-hmm. They're coming back for round 2, and I'm getting ready to draft my answer. And part of my answer, I'm adding the Alabama Litigation Accountability Act in this case too, because it is completely without merit. And, I don't like to pull that card, but at some point, if the lawyer is doing stuff to make money and they don't know the law, this is the only way you teach them not to file frivolous lawsuits.
That's good approach. I mean,
no, it just means I'm cold-hearted. Jeff, you went cold on me.
It's the
right,
cold heart.
Did anybody call you in the last week about a job? Because you said you were begging for help.
Still begging. Apparently, this microphone doesn't reach the unemployed office or listeners.
I applied during the week.
I rejected that. Right.
Why?
Because I need you where you are. I don't need you under me. I need you telling me.
I can
what
do that
to
on the
go
weekends. Why did you reject my application?
You're a lawyer. I can't afford you. I've seen your hourly rate. I'm afraid you would be well outside of my ability to pay.
Jeff.
You'd be fun to work with. It'd send you out, knock on some of these doors, get bit by a dog. It's always a good time.
I only sleep 4 hours a day, so you don't have to worry about me working. So.
That's why I don't want to hire you, Joe. You'll keep me up all night. It's been hard enough to wrangle this routine and schedule in.
We've had a fascinating conversation today about how to terminate alimony. If you have that situation, call my office. Every case is unique and individual. What we've talked about today is not a catch-all for any case. As always, if you need an investigator in the state of Alabama, Spy for Rent. Jeff Hammett, Corey Fuller, and his group are the best that they are. They are the exclusive investigators of my office, and they will do you right. They do great work. They do not take advantage of you. They're cost effective in how they do their job, in what they do every day. As I told you, we have Jared Hudson coming in for the second hour. Jared Hudson is running for the United States Senate as a Republican. He's in the race with Steve Marshall and Barry Moore. Jared Hudson is within the era of margin in the race. Stick around for that interview after news and weather. We'll be back.
Thank you, Joe.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. He's a tough street-fighting lawyer with the highest ratings for honesty and integrity. He's here to answer your legal questions and get you the help you need. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Joe Ingram has more than 20 years' experience fighting for his clients here in the state of Alabama. Joe's focus is criminal defense and family law. You don't have to face your legal issue alone. You've got Joe Ingram on your side. In case of sensitive legal matters, you can always reach out directly to Joe at joeingramlaw.com and arrange for a private consultation. And now, Alabama's defender of the defenseless, protector of the people, and all-around good guy, Joe Ingram.
All right, we're back for the second hour of the Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram, on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. Last week I told you I was taking the week off. I lied. I made some connections, and I was able to promise you in the first hour what we're about to do. We have Jared Hudson in the studio today, and he is running for the United States Senator on the Republican side of the ticket, and we made a lot of things happen to do this really fast because of primaries, and Jared has been so kind to come in and talk with us today. Jared, how are you?
I'm doing great, brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this, sir.
Yeah, man, too easy.
All right, so Jared, quickly introduce yourself to Talk Radio of North Alabama.
Yeah, so my name's Jared Hudson. As you said just a minute ago, I'm running to be the next Republican senator from the great state of Alabama. The three most important things you need to know about me is, one, I'm a Christian. During political season, everybody's a Christian, so we always got to qualify that a little bit. But Jesus is my Lord and Savior. That's what I mean. Jesus is God incarnate, and it's through him we're set free. So I'm a Christian. I'm a seventh-generation Alabama family man. My wife and my three girls were raising right here in the great state of Alabama. And then finally, I'm a United States Navy SEAL sniper. I'm a law enforcement officer, still sworn in Blount County as a sheriff's deputy, as an investigator under Mark Moon, and working on the TAC team there, and then also an investigator as a task force officer with Homeland Security. And I'm the CEO of Covenant Rescue Group, a nonprofit that combats human trafficking. And that's the down and dirty of who Jared Hudson is.
You did it in about a minute. That's great, Jared. I want to ask you a lot of questions, so I want to get through these. And I've asked all the same candidates for senator the same kind of questions. What is your position on the SAVE Act and voting rights issue?
Yeah, no, I think we need to pass the SAVE Act. I don't think it's a crazy thing, especially in states like Alabama where we already require voter identification. We need to make sure that we don't have illegal immigrants voting in our elections, so making sure that you certify that you are a citizen of this nation, but then also have an identification so that we know who's voting. Now, that's unbelievably important. Now, the Constitution outlines time, place, and manner. So there's a lot that's left up to the states. However, we have states that are utilizing that process to negatively impact the totality of the American citizenry, and that's why the SAVE Act is unbelievably important.
What is your position on the national debt? We are closing in on $40 trillion.
Yeah, $40 trillion in debt. Yeah.
And, the war is costing us roughly $2 billion a day. That's another topic. What is your thought on national debt, and is there any particular department in the United States Congress that you'd say, Joe, I'd eliminate today if I could?
Yeah, so wouldn't it be great to eliminate the IRS today if we could, right? That's the one that irritates us the most.
Yeah.
I think the FDA is one that's been people have talked about as well. But on the other side of it, just getting to the real root of the matter, which is $40 trillion in debt. We look at that; that's a massive number. We're never going to be able to even comprehend what 40 trillion looks like, right? At least I can, as just a regular dude from Alabama. But one of the biggest things is, if you take away looking at the debt issue, what is the government going to do, right? They're going to spend money. We know the government's going to spend money. Making sure that the money that they are going to spend is brought back to us in the state of Alabama. That is unbelievably important, and that's the job of a U.S. Senator, to make sure that your tax dollars don't go to waste, fraud, and abuse in Minnesota, or funding Leering centers in Minnesota, or $40 million a week that's still going to the Taliban, right? We need to make sure that those dollars that are spent are brought back and invested, in our case, in our Alabama economy, in our infrastructure, in our veterans, making sure that our workforce education is being bolstered and put in place so that our kids are educated for the good paying jobs tomorrow, making sure that we invest in us. So that would be the first side of it. The money that is spent needs to come back, as opposed to being wasted fraudulently or wasted on dumb stuff like, transgender studies in sub-Saharan Africa. On the other side of it, we have the ability to, with a national debt that's so high, we have the ability, even though we shouldn't have to, we have the ability, if we unleash American energy, American ingenuity, and we start equitizing our natural resources like, the rare earth minerals, LNG, oil, gas. If we unleash American energy and we equitize some of that, we can start covering the cost of our debt. And it also allows us not to have to rely on other nations for a lot of what we're relying on. So we start being less reliant, and we're able to provide for other nations as opposed to always relying on them.
We're speaking with Jared Hudson. He's running for the United States Senate on the Republican side of the ticket. Jared, I know you're a Christian. You talk about your faith. Under the First Amendment, I'm not opposed to anybody's religion. I mean, if they want to worship a tree, good luck to you, right? There's been a lot talked about this election cycle about Sharia law. What is your position, or what's your philosophy, or what do you believe in about freedom of religion?
Well, yeah, it's outlined very easily in the First Amendment. It's the first part of the First Amendment, right? Is that you have the freedom to worship God however you see fit. And that's a Judeo-Christian value. So the biggest thing is, one, as a Christian, I already want you to be able to have the choice, because I believe that's what God has given us. You have a choice to accept or deny Christ. Now, as a Christian, I'm supposed to share Christ with you, and it's the Holy Spirit that urges your heart and changes your heart and mind. And so I share Christ, I pray for you, and then it's on the Holy Spirit to do the work, and on you to accept the work that the Holy Spirit's done. And that's an important qualifier to make for what Christianity is, because Christianity doesn't force itself upon you. The talk that everybody's had is about Sharia law and Islam, and here's one of the biggest issues with Islam, and I've got a lot of Muslim buddies that I even worked with overseas. Islam as a whole is the antithesis of that. It's the opposite of the U.S. Constitution. Now, everybody who practices Islam might not practice it in that way. They choose to negate those things that are essentially convert or die, right? You have to believe what we believe, or you cannot be a part of our community or a part of our culture. And that's where we have to make sure that whoever comes into this country, whatever they believe, it has to assimilate to the U.S. Constitution. I'm not going to bash you over the head with my Christianity and force you to believe what I believe, because in reality, that's not Christianity anyway. You have to accept what Christ has done for you. On the other side, you cannot force me to believe what you believe either. And that's oftentimes what we see, especially with Islam, is you have to believe what we believe or we're going to kill you. Or at a minimum, you have to believe what we believe or you're going to pay a tax. And so making sure that we uphold the rights of the individual to worship as they see fit is what the First Amendment has codified. And it's not something given to us by government. It's given to us by God. And it's outlined so that government or any entity can't overstep that constitutional right of the individual.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you are aware, so I'm just going to ask you the question. The legislature in Montgomery last week just passed the legislation to put the 10 Commandments on the ballot in November to put the 10 Commandments back in schools. So we're going to get to vote on that for the elections. Have you heard about that on the campaign trail?
I heard about it just recently because I guess they just voted on it.
Right.
Yeah,
it just passed last week. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a good thing. They're going to treat it as a historical document to put it in the schools. And we talked about this on my show last week. There was some kids up in Tennessee, and the schools were taking breaks for the Muslims for Ramadan. And I'm thinking, well, if we can make exceptions for those, and our country was founded on Christianity principles, why in heaven's name can we not have the 10 Commandments in a schoolhouse?
No, I mean, I totally agree. And then letting the people vote for it. John Locke said the closest form of government to the people is the most effective form of government. So when the people of Alabama vote and they make their voice heard, going with that is not a problem. On the other side of it, for the people who say, oh, we can't have 10 commandments in the schools. Well, I mean, Jesus says all the commandments, so that's 630 some odd laws of Torah, hinge on two things. Love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. On these two things, all the law hinge. Now, Jesus himself said that. The 10 commandments outline that. First God, then people. So the first 4 commandments deal with honoring God, honoring something greater than yourself. And then the last 6 commandments are dealing with people, are dealing with your neighbor, how we're supposed to act. And it's not asking you to do anything crazy. It's saying, hey, don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't murder your neighbor, right? So the things that the 10 Commandments are asking us for, they're not even things that we have to agree upon as Christians. These are things that we agree upon as just regular citizens in society. So it's not even if you don't believe in God like I do, that Jesus is God incarnate, He died, rose again on the third day for my sins and yours. Even if you don't believe in the Bible like I do, that it's the inerrant word of God, or that the 10 Commandments draw us to the living God, the one who saves us from our sins, even if you don't believe that, it's hard for you to say that learning the 10 Commandments is going to negatively impact society, because it teaches us to, one, elevate something as more important than ourselves. Love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And at a minimum, love your neighbor as yourself. I have to treat you the same as me.
All right. What is your thought if you become a United States Senator on the filibuster rule?
Oh, I think the filibuster is a great shield that we have. One of the biggest things is if we end the filibuster, because that's what everybody's talking about. If we end the filibuster right now today, on the Democrat side, we might be able to push everything through. Let's say we could. Right now that we have the House and the Senate, which, the way the midterms are looking, we'll probably lose at least quite a few seats in the House, right?
Maybe.
But let's say on the Senate side that we're able to push through everything that we want to push through. The Democrats can undo, when they take control, they'll be able to undo everything that we would push through as conservatives. But there are 2 things that they can do that we would not be able to undo, or it would take us a very long time to undo it. 1, they would pack the courts, and 2, they would make D.C. and Puerto Rico a state. And those are 2 things that we would not be able to undo. So the filibuster is an important tool if you don't have the majority. Also, as conservatives, we're not for the government jamming everything down your throat, right? We don't want the government jamming stuff down our throat. We want less government, not more government. And the filibuster limits the ability for the majority or the government, right, whoever's in charge of the government at the time, jamming stuff down the throats, in our case, of the American people. So the last thing I'll leave you with is on the filibuster, I think we should end the silent filibuster, the zombie filibuster. don't just signal and say, I'm going to filibuster this, and then all of a sudden they're able to, without actually earning it or working for it, or like the Democrats have been doing, shutting down the partial government shutdown, and impacting the American people negatively, without them ever having to go in and earn it. We're making them stand on the floor and earn it. Because I think if you make Chuck Schumer stand on that floor and talk for longer than 30 minutes, that filibuster won't last very long. So in the zombie filibuster or in the silent filibuster, I think that's what we could do.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts don't matter. I'm not a candidate. I'll never be a candidate. I couldn't get elected dog catcher. So let me ask you this, because you come from this from a different perspective than your two opponents. Only in the sense that you've never, held elective office. Based on your background, highly intelligent, SEAL sniper, served your country. You've been in the military. You have an MBA, highly intelligent man. Where would you go on election night if you win? Where would you start to pick your staff to serve in your Senate office?
Yeah, it starts right here in the state of Alabama. So most of the time what you see senators that have a massive staff in D.C. and a smaller staff in their state support, and even on the congressional side within their districts. It seems like our representatives in Washington have a smaller staff where their constituent services should be. I am elected to represent the people of the state of Alabama, not the people of Washington, D.C., or the people that are in Washington, D.C. And as a senator elected to represent the people of the state of Alabama, it would start right here in Alabama to make sure that our constituent services provide the service that a U.S. senator is supposed to provide for the people of Alabama. So that's where I would start. And that process has already started to some extent for us, because our personnel is policy, right? The people you have are going to dictate the policies you make oftentimes. So making sure that we're not far removed from the people of Alabama and we have Alabama represented, truly represented in Washington is of the utmost importance to me.
Yeah, very good. We're talking with Jared Hudson, running for Republican United States Senate. Jared, I've seen some interviews that you've done. Is it my understanding that you believe in term limits?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So what would be your philosophy if we're going to presume that Jared gets elected? What do you think is a comfortable number for you? 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms?
So at the front end of that, right now, unless you have federal term limits for everybody across the board, it's symbolism without substance. It's an irrelevant talking point, because the purpose right now is seniority brings back for your state or your district or whatever you're elected for as a senator for the state of Alabama. So making sure that it's the same for everybody across the board is the first thing. So you have to have federal term limits for everybody. What I think would be comfortable, honestly, at the front end, I don't care. Let's get something set. My personal opinion, 2 terms for Senate, 6 terms for House. That's 12 years. That closely matches what we already have for presidential terms, which is 2 terms, which is 8 years. So, all of that closely matches. I think that would be reasonable and fair. And the way you get it done is a lot of the people that are in there now that are really toward the end of their career, they're close to retiring, you grandfather some of those in. So now they're not voting themselves out necessarily. They are, okay, yeah, we'll do this because it's not going to impact us. The goal would not be, and it would be almost impossible to make it work for us in this moment right now. It would be to make it better for our kids and our grandkids so that they have something to hold on to make sure that they're not continuing to be run roughshod over by folks that are in office for, it's supposed to be service. It's not service if you're there for 40 years.
Yeah, I was looking at a news article the other day. There's a whole group of them: Maxine Waters, Mitch McConnell, Steny Hoyer, James Clyburn, South Carolina. There's a whole group of folks in their 80s, and they've been there for 30, 40 years.
The average age of a senator, I was told this the other day, I didn't know this, of a senator right now is 73 years old.
Isn't that crazy?
The average age that a buddy of mine that used to work for the Social Security Administration, he said the average age of death for an American male right now is like 72 and a half. So our senators at the average age are living on borrowed time right now.
It's a geriatric home in the Senate.
my gosh,
It's a geriatric home.
But they're making decisions. They're making decisions that are never going to impact them, and honestly, might not even impact their kids that much. It's going to impact their grandkids and their great grandkids. For us, we're making decisions. Me at 40, I'll be making decisions that impact me right now, but more in particular, my kids and grandkids down the road, and maybe even great grandkids. So I think it's important to elect somebody who has some skin in the game, and I think that's part of it. But as far as term limits, I think 2 terms for Senate, 6 terms for House. That's 12 years across the board.
Very good. Listen, I'm throwing a lot at you because we talked off air. I got a lot of. I mean, I could go all day with you. I saw an interview you did with Sean Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I watched the whole thing, 3 hours, 39 minutes exactly. And you talked about the sheriff race, how you felt like that God compelled you to run for that race. So did that happen again for this position?
It did. I mean, the Lord opened the doors for me to run, but this was never something on my radar or on my wife's radar, something we ever thought of. I ran for sheriff. I felt God called me to do it. Everybody's saying, hey, don't run as a Republican in Jefferson County. And I said, well, I am a Republican. I'm not a Democrat, and I ran against the incumbent Democrat. So I was a Republican nominee for Jefferson County, ran against the incumbent Democrat and almost beat him, lost by about a 1.5 which everybody said was impossible. They even had polling that showed me 15 points behind before the end of the election. The Jefferson County Republican Party, they helped me out greatly. The state Republican Party helped me out greatly, and so did the people of this county, but not just this county, all over the state, and even in other states who were like, hey, dude, you want to take on an incumbent Democrat sheriff in Birmingham? We'll go for that. And the reason it was important was because, one, this sheriff's office is the largest in the state. It was at the time, I don't know if it still is, the 24th largest in the nation. And it was, this race was larger than a congressional race. It was larger than a congressional district, right? The amount of people that you impact. So it was a big sheriff's race, a big county race. And God blessed us tremendously, but we didn't win in the end. But I did it because I felt called to do it. The same sort of thing has happened here, but the Lord opened the doors, felt called, and we stepped through the doors, and He's granted us great success. But I'll be honest with you, if it wasn't for me losing this sheriff's race and almost beating a Democrat in Jefferson County, that would not have opened the doors for me to be able to run for the office that I'm in right now, or running for right now.
So that's where I want to go with this. I had somebody on recently that ran for a race, lost it, come back for a second time. I've known a number of candidates that's run for judicial races, this, that, and they don't win. And the next day they're just devastated. It's kind of like losing the vote for president of your senior class in high school. You just feel like you don't have a friend in the world. So or that's what I've been told. So for you, when you lost that race, and I know that you come at this from a different perspective than most folks based upon your life experiences and your religious faith and all that. The day after the race, how did you feel? Did you feel like the end of the world? Did you feel like was it just like, okay, we go on?
No, every deployment I went on, I had buddies die that didn't come home to their wives and kids. Losing the race here, it's not. I'm not saying I wasn't celebrating. Obviously, it's like, man, didn't see that one coming. Man, that was close. But no, it wasn't. It wasn't devastating in the reality of what devastating is, which is we go overseas and Brendan Looney doesn't come home. We go overseas and Brett Merrihew dies. We go overseas and Pat Feeks or Dave Warson doesn't come back. That is real devastation when guys that you are brothers with don't return with you. Losing a political race, not that. I just went back to what I was doing.
Yeah, and don't mean to cut you off, but my time's limited with you. And I think you said something in that interview. You said, if I hadn't lost that race, there was something that happened like a year or so later in your life that you said, well, now I know why this happened.
It was about 2 months after some of the people that supported our race here in Jefferson County, Alabama folks that didn't know about the nonprofit my wife and I had started, Covenant Rescue Group, said, we had no idea you were doing this. I said, well, I didn't want to make it political during the race because we're building real cases against guys that are buying and selling kids. And they said, we want to support this. And 2 months after the race, a lot of people that supported the race started supporting Covenant Rescue Group, so much so that the board had to vote to hire me, and then I had two other guys I picked, me as the CEO of the organization. And then because my wife and I started it, and then I stepped back and let them run stuff, and we would run it as, kind of part-time basis. But there was so much that came in, they had to hire me full-time as a CEO, and then I was able to hire in a chief training officer, and now we have 10 full-time personnel, or maybe 7 full-time personnel, 3 part-time, and about 50 subcontractors that work for us once a month doing these operations and trainings all over the nation. And if it wasn't for me losing that sheriff's race, Covenant Rescue Group wouldn't be where it is right now.
Okay. We're going to go to news and weather. We got Jared Hudson with us today on the Legal Lowdown. We'll be back after news and weather. You don't want to miss the rest of this interview. Very fascinating. We'll be back.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right. This Legal Lowdown, final segment of the week. We have Jared Hudson in the house. He's running for United States Senator, Republican side of the ticket. I had to scold Jared during the break. I said, Jared, talk a little faster, dude. We got to get a lot of questions in. He said okay, and he promised not to kill me.
We can make it concise.
It's a joke. It's a joke. I have bad humor. Jared, let me ask you. The 3 big candidates in the race. I saw a poll the other day. Barry Moore, Steve Marshall are like 26, 22, and then I saw you at 19, and they said you're within the margin of error. So, and then the number that drives me crazy is the undecided still, right? And
like we're 40% or something,
and we're 5 weeks away.
Yeah.
So, it's a given to you that there's going to be a runoff, correct?
I would say, yeah, it's almost statistically impossible for there not to be one.
Yeah. And I saw an interview that you did down in Point Clear, Alabama with 1819 News. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about, Congressman Barry Moore's got the South locked down and Attorney General Steve Marshall's got this locked down. And then they were asking you where you go, and you like, I'm just going up I-65, brother. What do you think is going to get you there in this race?
Yeah, so on the front end of it, the only poll that matters, polls are great, but the only poll that matters is May 19th when the voters get out and decide. And we do have 40% undecided. You've got an attorney general with name ID across the state, so the undecided ones, it's not that they don't know him, it's that they're choosing not to vote for him. You've got a congressman out of South Alabama who has relatively high name ID now that he's had the spend that's been spent on him, but it hasn't moved him that much. I think they came out with I saw an article the other day where it was $1 million a point is basically what he moved. And so since we're all statistically tied at about 20%, and we haven't spent $1 yet, we haven't spent any money to get advertising out. So we've been saving our powder and keeping it dry because it's not just the most amount of money, it's also the timing of when you use it. And when people start to decide, is that 3 to 4 week time frame out? Why? Because we all live regular lives. Like nobody's thinking about a political race every day of the week. And I know for me, I'm not normally thinking about a primary until probably the beginning of May because we're going to vote on May 19th. I might have looked at it some, but people have baseball, people have kids' school, people have spring break, people have groceries they got to afford. They're looking at regular everyday life issues. I'm telling you this as a regular guy who's dealing with the same thing. People are just not always thinking about politics, and that's how you win the race. You hit them at the right time.
All right. Let me ask you, I know that you were asked about this recently, about the Iranian war, and to me it's a war. It's not an excursion. It's not whatever adverb they need to call it for political speech. It's a war now.
Yeah.
In my term. And I think you would probably agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. And I didn't get to read the whole thing. I apologize. I think you said something to the effect of, I don't support the war, but I support the troops. Am I wrong in that?
No, yeah. And somebody else said something like that. No, we've been at this war, this conflict since 1979, longer than I've been alive. 1983, they killed our Marines in the Beirut bombing. There was a Marine from Alabama who lost his life during that. 1999, 2000, they attacked the USS Cole. 17 sailors died. I remember there's a whole training block in the Navy that we do based strictly on that attack, right? Then during GWOT, what I fought in, every person I killed, or almost every person I killed overseas, and guys that built IEDs that killed my buddies, were at some shape, form, or fashion tied to the IRGC or trained by the IRGC. And then finally, more recently, Nate Ingrams and Chris Chambers, 2 SEALs that died taking down a ship of the Houthis that was sending Iranian missile parts to the Houthis right off the coast of Somalia. They died. So the fact is we've been fighting these guys, and the proxy war that they've been waging through Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, even though they don't ideologically align, has been going on for 50 years or 47 years. On the other side of it, China's been using Iran as a proxy to wage war on us, and even economically wage war on us, and now we're shutting down the Belt Road initiative that they have going on. We're killing their energy sector because they have a lot of data centers. We're talking about data centers in the break that need energy to be able to sustain themselves. So we are impacting China. With all that being said, I don't care at the front end if you're on the political level, and that's what I was being asked. Do you support or are you against the war? That's not the question we need to ask. The fact of the matter is the Trump administration has decided, and they have the constitutional authority to do it, to take their 60 days under the War Powers Act and target specifically whatever they want to target in Iran, the IRGC. And then there's a 30-day drawdown. And at some point in time, if we're going to go any further, if we're going to go beyond April 27th, Congress has to declare war, right? And this is just the way the Constitution's written. So with all of that being said, I almost don't care right now if you're for it or if you're against it. If you're the person who's saying that Trump started this war or Israel started this war or whatever, you obviously don't understand what's been happening in the Middle East geopolitically for the last 50 years. This didn't just start. We've been the big Satan for the last 50 years. Israel's been the little Satan. They've been waging war on us. Okay, but either way, we can talk about that on one end. If you're saying that this war's been going on for 50 years and we need to end it now, okay, that's fine too. The war is not the part that I'm worried about. It's the warfighter. It's the dad who doesn't come home to his wife and his kids. It's the kids who have to give up a mom or a dad who's serving our nation on their behalf, not for partisan issues, but they're doing what they're called to do to stand in the gap for us. People do violence so we can sleep in peace at night, and one step further, they give their last breath so that you can take your next. I had some buddies on the op that rescued the gunner. The pilot went down, and then you had the weapons officer. Had some buddies on that op. I actually talked to them last week. They punched a one-way ticket. They were willing to die to try to get that guy, not come home to their wife and kids. There's something special about that. So I say support the war fighter if you can't support the war. If you do support the war, don't just be all in it for the war like we see the Lindsey Grahams of the world who would literally salivating all over themselves just to go to war with Iran. No, support the war fighter. That's what I say. It doesn't matter if you're for or against it. Be for the war fighter, because they're the ones who are actually delivering. It's not the politicians. It's not the administration. It's the warfighter who's on the ground, bleeding their blood, giving their lives, and their families that are sacrificing them. They're the ones that make the difference.
So in the last week, or over this past weekend, they decided, okay, we're going to go to a blockade. Do you think that's a good position? Because I'm kind of thinking we've destroyed their military. We've destroyed their Air Force. We've destroyed their Navy. We don't know where the mines are in the water. We've killed the first and second generation of the leaders of Iran. So now we're trying to cut them off financially. We've frozen all their money all over the world. What do you think about this?
I mean, I think it's the best decision that we got now, and it definitely keeps boots off the ground, right? We don't want boots on the ground, and unless the politicians are willing to clear them hot, to literally bomb everything so that our guys can walk through and do a battle damage assessment, then they're not willing to support the warfighter in the way that we would put boots on the ground. I'm completely against boots on the ground because it's unnecessary. This is a way to do that and start squeezing not just Iran, but China. That's the other thing that everybody has to think about, is this impacts China. Now, for us, obviously, we get the majority of our oil domestically, right, or a lot of it domestically, but because of what's going on, it impacts global oil markets. So we can't just pull chalks and leave, because what's going to happen? A lot of people are going to be mad, and then what do? Well, we start impacting the petrodollar, and we start impacting global oil markets even worse, and that impacts us here in America. So we're kind of in a position where that might be the best option that we have right now, is to say, no, you're not going to close the straits. We're going to close the straits, and we're going to keep you from being able to allow ships through that are bringing oil to our foreign adversaries.
Interesting conversation with Jared Hudd. He's running for Senate on the Republican side of the ticket. So, Jared, let me ask you something, because I love the military. I really do. And I told you when I got to talk to you, thank you for your service to our country. I'm going to switch gears on you for a second. Don't get mad at me. I saw in an interview where you got to take a sniper shot, 2,345
yards.
Yards, thank you. I was going to say meters, and thank you.
Yeah, it was about 2,100 meters, yeah.
And I think you said you had to take 4 shots?
I did. I shot well. I missed 4 times. I hit him on the 5th one,
Yeah, and you joked about, you said even.
I said a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again.
Yeah. So I think to run for political office, there are some unique traits about you that nobody else has. Going through SEAL training, 62 weeks, roughly, right? Going through BUDS, learn how to dive, learn how to swim, all that. I get all that. I understand it. The thing that's really unique for me, for you as a candidate, is that nobody is going to have the kind of discipline that you have because of your training and because what you've done in your previous experiences.
No, I mean, it's that's a fair assessment, yeah, and it definitely, to be a SEAL, to be a successful sniper, to run a small business like we do now, or a nonprofit, or even be a law enforcement officer that investigates, child exploitation, all of those things take a fair amount of discipline. To run for office, even running for it right now, takes discipline. I think oftentimes that's why we see candidates fail when they're running, is they don't understand the discipline it takes to make phone calls, to go to the meetings, to fundraise, to meet people where they are, to make sure that they're not parroting talking points, but they're actually genuine and they really know what they're talking about and believe it. And that's another thing, is just people being like, wow, this guy really believes what he's saying. Well, yeah, I do, because it has the benefit of being true, right? All of those things require a large amount of discipline, and to be a U.S. senator that truly serves the people they're elected to represent, as opposed to themselves. I think that's why we're in the mess we're in now. It's for far too long we have these career politicians. They climb a ladder to elevate themselves, and they stand on the shoulders of giants and claim that they're flying. They run around and ride coattails of men and women far greater than them, and they make deals with special interest groups to buy their spot, as opposed to being someone who is there to serve the people, which requires unbelievable discipline. It requires the most discipline. It even said, Jesus says, don't let any one of you consider yourself a leader, because you're going to be held to a higher standard. It's better that you had a millstone tied around your neck and thrown in the ocean than you lead one of these little ones astray. And I think it's the same thing as a senator who is representing the leaders of this nation, we the people, who are going to vote them into office. If you're going to represent the people, the power of this nation, you better do it in a way that is not just effective, but that is just and righteous. And that requires an unbelievable amount of discipline.
We're talking with Jared Hudson. Jared, let me ask you something. We talked off the break. You get to go all over the state. I asked you, I said, hey, are you hearing a lot about data centers? And you said, a little. But at the end of the day, it goes back to kitchen table issues, right? Food. What is it? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food, shelter.
That's exactly what it is. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's what everybody talks about, affordability in that order. Groceries, energy, so your power bill or your fuel cost, and housing. And then finally, depending on who it is and where it is, healthcare is always something that people ask about. But yeah, that's it, affordability, the overall cost of living.
And I want to veer off for a second. You talked about when you were getting ready to think about getting out of the Navy SEALs, and you were going through your having your evaluations and all that. And for those of you who don't know out there, Jared has had multiple surgeries. He's broken his back. I think you broke.
I broke my neck once. I broke my back twice. I've had some TBIs, getting blown up, hitting IEDs, hit with RPGs, stuff like that. And I mean, I'm still perfectly fine, but those are all things that you have to deal with in the SEAL teams.
And you were talking about going to the green team?
Yeah, so development group, or what everybody refers to as SEAL Team 6, you have to get selected and screened for it. I was selected. I screened positive for green team. And during that process is when they found I had some medical issues that wouldn't allow me to be a deployable SEAL anymore. And so I went over to sniper school as a sniper instructor and started going through the med process out.
What is green team?
Green team is just the selection process for SEALs to go to Special Mission Unit, which is Development Group or SEAL Team 6.
Okay. And there was something you said that really caught me because we do it in my office. You said you had to go through a bunch of tests, and you had to take. You said something about the Myers-Briggs test, and we use that for personalities because when you have people in an office, if you don't know how they communicate, how they get along, how you get the best out of somebody, who you can really, yell and scream at, or whether somebody has to have a different type of approach, that's why we give them the Myers-Briggs test.
Right.
And me, they call me an INTJ, which is intelligent, something, thinking, judgmental. It's the INTJ. I'm the architect. My wife is totally opposite. She works in my office. She's very affectionate, caring. It's unbelievable how the two of us work together and get along. So I was interested in that. Let me ask you something, because it may come back up if you're a senator. How do you feel about Obamacare? We got close in Trump's first term of getting rid of Obamacare. How do you feel about that issue?
I mean, it's the Unaffordable Care Act, right? It's done nothing but raise our premiums and raise the price of our health care and, limit or minimize the amount of care that you can get. I mean, I don't want to go too much into personal life, but I mean, I deal with it right now just with me and my wife, with some of what we deal with. Now, I deal with the VA on my side, but with my wife and my kids and what they have on the other side of the government, the TRICARE or the Chant VA or whatever it's called, what they deal with on the other side of it has been impacted unbelievably by the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and their ability to get the care that they're used to. And not just them. Now I go to guys that work for me, and I don't want to get into what they're dealing with, but literally it is an unbelievable burden on the American people and the people of Alabama. And then take it one step further with where we're at in Alabama. Just our reimbursement rates across the board are lower than anywhere else in the nation. So that's already a bigger problem for the people of Alabama. So making sure that we can get that wrapped up so that we're not subsidizing health care for everybody else in the world except for the American people who deserve it, who are paying into it, the Alabama people who are paying into it, but take it one step further. making sure that we protect not just your premiums, what you're paying overall. It's been a massive issue. It's created an unbelievable issue for everybody across the board.
Yeah. I have been told by some candidates, because I've asked some candidates running for the Public Service Commission. Obviously, data centers get talked a lot about that. Data centers, not a big issue on the campaign trail, but maybe the solar panel issues down in South Alabama.
Yeah, when we were down that way and near Stockton, where the solar panel issue was coming up, and the community was absolutely opposed to it. And I would be in the same boat. I mean, why destroy 600 or 900 acres of timberland and waterways to put up solar panels or a data center when honestly, when you look at a lot of the economic revitalization that's taking place, you can look at a place like here in Birmingham. Look at all the tunnels we have under Birmingham. And in Denmark, they put data centers underground because they've got to stay cool. And then they store the energy that they produce to heat their homes in the winter. I'm not saying that would be an answer, but it would be something that we could look at that might be a better fit for a data center as opposed to clearing 600, 900 acres of a community and throwing up solar panels just to be able to give it the energy it needs to run, but then also the energy it needs to keep it cool. That's really what you're running for there. Or revitalize some of these old steam plants up here on the river that could run it. There are other options, I guess, that are out there. So it's not that I don't think it's that people are against data centers for the ones that have talked about it. Mm-hmm. They're against the way it's going about because it kind of seems like they're swooping in and claiming one thing, and then in reality it becomes another because it doesn't generate a lot of jobs.
No, it doesn't.
I mean,
and the thing about data centers from the little research that I've read, and I didn't start reading about this until January, Oracle is betting huge on data centers, okay? The thing about it is they take up a lot of land, they take up a lot of power, and a lot of water to generate. And it's almost what's happened to what I call the shopping malls, like the Galleria. Nobody goes to the Galleria anymore. And so if we build this big data center, and it's just like our phone. My first iPhone I got in 1991, and it was this big brick, Jared, if you ever saw one of those.
Oh,
things.
your first cell phone, the old cell phone. Yeah, the Zach Morris cell phone.
Yeah. And now we've got this. So I'm thinking, if we build this huge data center, right, in 30 years, is that the same thing with the shopping malls?
That's a great question to ask. And even the solar farm that they were talking about in Stockton, one of the guys that was part of it said, in like 10 or 12 years, they're going to have to, like, this thing has run its course. They're going to have to replace a lot of the parts. I don't know how true that is. That's just hearing telling you what I've heard on the campaign trail. It's not. I don't think it's something that's sustainable to your point, because it's at some point in time it's going to be more than just an eyesore. It's just going to be a big useless blob, and we destroyed 600, 900 acres of timberland as opposed to using something that already existed, right? And here's the other thing: if a community can make it work for that community, and they're saying we want this here, well, that's another thing, right? But for the most part, it seems like these jokers are swooping in and they're taking over a community, and they're burdening that community, one, with just the footprint of whatever the data center is or whatever's generating power for it, in this case, a solar farm. But on the other side, we need to make sure that community's not having to subsidize the power that's required or the water that's required or whatever it is that's running it. It needs to positively impact that community, and it doesn't seem they're doing that.
Yeah. We're talking with Jared Hudson. Jared, you've got about 3 minutes to talk to North Alabama. Tell them whatever you want to tell before we get to wrap up here today, sir.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things across North Alabama, we just talked about economic revitalization. You've got the old Muscle Shoals railway cart facility that is now being revitalized to produce subpods, to produce a bunch of different aerospace defense industry materials. And without going too much into it, we had the ability to go up there and see that. Obviously, we know what's going on at Redstone Arsenal. We know the development that's taking place. And in the process of that, we see Eli Lilly coming in. So we see private investment coming in and jobs up there, not just contract jobs for building, but also jobs in the future when everything is done and they're set up and they're running. The point I'm getting at is that is what, when I say I want to put Alabama first, that is what Alabama first is. It's continuing that investment into our state, into North Alabama, into developing our infrastructure like I-65 down through Birmingham, revitalizing our economy in ways that we haven't seen in years, right? Jobs going to other countries are now coming back in Etowah County, like what we saw with the old Republic Steel Mill, where I had a great-granddaddy, a granddaddy, and uncles all worked there until it shut down. Well, what's happening now? Now we're building car parts for car manufacturing because they're revitalizing that facility. Making sure that we invest in the state of Alabama to put Alabama first and bring our dollars back here so they're not funding Lehren centers in Minnesota or $40 million a week going to the Taliban. It's coming here to elevate our Christian conservative way of life and making our voice loud and clear on the national stage. The last thing I'll leave you with, the United States of America is the arsenal of democracy and freedom around the world. That's why people are knocking down our doors to get here. I want to make sure that Alabama is the arsenal of the United States of America. So it doesn't matter if you're in North Alabama or wherever you're at hearing this, understanding that you're going to elect a senator, when you elect me, you're going to elect a senator that puts Alabama first is the most important thing we can do in this Republican primary.
Well, Jared, I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to talk to you today, sir.
I've enjoyed talking with you, brother. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for serving our country. Thank you for running for Senate. It takes people. It's hard to stand up and do this. It is. People that's never run for political office don't know what they're walking into. And to do it on a national level is huge, right? And thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. And just really fast, we got about 12 seconds. You counting the days down to the primary now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know the exact days. I think we're at 35 days to the primary. But go to HudsonForAlabama.com to check us out. And, yeah, May 19th,
right,
the voters will decide.
Really fast, best piece of advice you've ever received. You are what you think about. Everything you think about, you become. Thoughts lead into your actions. Actions lead into your behaviors. Behaviors lead to your lifestyle. Lifestyle determines your destiny. So everything becomes in your mind. You cannot control it. Have a good week. Got to go. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Don't forget to follow Joe's Legal Lowdown podcast on iHeart. If you need a private legal consultation, reach out to Joe on his website, joeingramlaw.com. Tune in again next Saturday for The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by any other lawyer.